What's up, crew? Welcome to Filming in Progress, the show that takes you backstage into the world of local businesses and the people who make them shine. We're honored to have Shane Wenzel, President and CEO of the Shane Homes Group of Companies, here today. With a background in marketing and a knack for innovation, Shane leads his companies while also shaping industry policy through organizations like Build Calgary and the Alberta Enterprise Group. Shane, thanks so much for being here.
Well, and thank you for having me.
I'm excited for our chat today. If you can start, can you just give me a brief history on how you got into real estate development?
Well, it actually goes back to where the company came from, and the company was formed in 1979 by my father and his business partner at the time, Barry Balsley. They worked themselves out of a job at a company called Neonex Shelter, which was a Jimmy Pattison-owned company, and they built mobile homes. But the writing was on the wall that particular segment of the market was coming to an end. You know, there just wasn't enough, not enough need for it. So these two guys took their severance checks and they created Shane Homes. And from there, it kind of grew. My father always wanted it to be kind of a family-owned and run business, and slowly but surely, different members of the family started coming into it in various capacities, just based on their skill sets. I had to start at the bottom. I became, the marketing assistant for the company, learning under my father, and then eventually taking over that side of the business and starting to grow our marketing plans from there.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Was the business named after you, or how did that come about?
The business was named after me because I mentioned Cal's partner, Barry. Barry only owned 25% of the company, but Barry's grand plan in the scheme of things was if he was financially capable to retire at 55, he would. And in the year 2000, Barry decided that's enough. So he retired out of the business, and it became wholly owned by our family.
How was it being born into an entrepreneurial family? I know you mentioned your father there specifically.
Somewhat difficult at times because it's not only my father. My mother is very entrepreneurial herself. So you can imagine what kind of the conversations were around the kitchen table as I was growing up. It usually included a lot of business, like what was happening the next day, week, month, or year.
Yeah. Do you think that shaped you to become an entrepreneur at a young age before you even, you had entrepreneurial tendencies, or was that kind of learned along the way?
I think I had entrepreneurial tendencies, and you learn a lot along the way. You pick up a lot by osmosis, but there's only so much you can learn there. Eventually, you have to go and learn from others. You have to go back to school as well, and learn the tricks of the trade that way. So yeah, that was kind of my upbringing, was learning how to be an entrepreneur and learning how to run a business.
Sometimes when you're born into entrepreneurial families, there's a bit of kickback, especially when you're a child. I don't want to learn from my parents or that sort of thing. Was that the case for you? I know you said you mentioned school, and I know sales and marketing is in your background as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're young, you're brash, you think you know it all, and typically you don't. You do have to go and learn some skills in other ways. And I attended some courses at the University of Calgary, and also spent 7 years in a tech group through Tech Canada. And that certainly opened my eyes to how the growth of the company could become even more than just Shane Homes.
Awesome. So through tech, that's interesting. That's there's plenty of groups out there that are entrepreneurial focused, and they're becoming more popular these days. How is your experience with tech, and was that before you took over the company? And what was the timeline there?
It was literally as I became president of the company. It gave me the opportunity to get into a president CEO group, and learn from other businesses that had grown well past the size that we are today. Yeah, and I always relate that to probably the best experience that I've ever had, because it gave you a different perspective. It wasn't just, cocooned in what we know here. I was able to bring back some very different approaches to how we grow and what that looks like moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And do you continue to be part of those kind of the tech specifically, or any groups like that? Not
at this point, no. I say I'm retired from tech. It doesn't mean I wouldn't go back, but at the time, I think I had learned everything I could, and a number of the senior members were starting to say retire or retire out of the group. So it just seemed fitting to kind of move along as they kind of retooled with younger entrepreneurs. But we remain close today, and we actually still share a lot of business secrets. So it's been a huge benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say to people that are thinking about these groups? We talk about it a lot, but the what was COVID was very segregating for a lot of people, especially business owners, and trying to navigate that on their own and that sort of thing. Do you think being a part of those communities is beneficial to business owners, and how so?
I think that is the most important thing you could probably do. Yeah, because you can't come up with all these ideas on your own, and it's the best way to do it is to live a learned experience from somebody else. And you'd be amazed how many people in the business community are prepared to share their experiences and how they got to where they were. I highly recommend it. I mean, if you're worried about the cost, I would say don't be worried about the cost. It is well worth it.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about starting in marketing when you first joined the company.
Yes.
How did that progress into becoming president?
Slowly but surely. I started off as a marketing assistant. I sat at that level for about 3 years, and eventually moved up to kind of managing one person in the department. And I think it came at a time when a lot of marketing concepts were starting to grow and expand. I still remember placing my first classified ad in the Calgary Herald. I still remember rate cards, and just how it's changed from there. And I still remember, in 1996, we came up with our first website, and my father harassed me for 8 years as to why we had this thing and why it was costing us $30,000 a year to maintain. But that's just what I was able to do as I grew in that role, and eventually became the VP of Sales and Marketing. You were able to take new initiatives like that and expand upon it, and become more of a leader in the marketplace. So that was a fun experience growing up that way and learning that way. But again, I credit a lot of just carrying on with education to go from the VP of Sales and Marketing to the president's level. That prepared me for taking on a larger role, and understanding that I had to take my hands out of the day-to-day of sales and marketing and focus more on visioning and planning where this thing could go.
Did you find that a hard transition to do? I know a lot of business owners, especially when you're going from a smaller team to a larger team, find it very difficult to get out of the day-to-day and start focusing on those bigger, especially when you have a passion for the marketing side in your case, right?
It's not easy. I know some people think it is, but it is hard, and I see it now that we're into our own succession planning here. Some people find it very hard to let go, and at the time, I found it very hard to let go because it wasn't the way I was doing it. That's not the way I wanted to do it. But I do credit, involvement with tech and learning from other presidents and CEOs as to this is how you take your hands off. You have to believe in people, and you have to allow them to make mistakes. And that was probably one of the best lessons I ever learned.
Mm-hmm. And so, when you're making that transition, do you attribute some of your success as Shane Homes as a company to your marketing kind of efforts and that sort of thing? For example, I grew up here in Calgary, yeah. And as long as I can remember, Shane Homes has almost been a household name. Mm-hmm. As a kid, I didn't really know what you did or that sort of thing, but I knew Shane Homes as a name. Yeah. That's obviously a huge accomplishment for a developer.
Sure it is, but I didn't do it alone. I played a part in it, but we've had some great people work here over the years, and we have even more great people moving into bigger, better roles here. So it's not just one thing that I did. I contributed to it, but there's a lot of people that contributed to the success of this company over the last 45 years. Innovation
is such an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ensure that you're staying on top of it? Like I said, the staying on top of, being a recognizable household name as a developer is so unique. And so I'm curious as to what are some of the practices that you, as well as your company, kind of keep in place to make sure that you're staying on top of the innovation side of things?
Well, you have to travel around the world. You have to go to various courses and conferences just to stay up to date as to what people are looking for. But you have to do a tremendous amount of market research as well, and really kind of dive down into what your customers' wants and needs are. Because it's so unique. Calgary has just become this amazing melting pot in all of Canada, of different cultures. You really do have to stay on top of what's changing in the marketplace year by year. And if you don't, eventually you fall behind, and then you no longer exist. You're no longer relevant to people. So that's what we pride ourselves on. And especially for the market research, that's I think been a big benefit to us. We've done a number of listening groups with people out at show homes and with different cultures to try and understand those wants in the home. But we also do a lot of targeted surveys with them throughout the entire process, and we really try and refine what we're doing to accommodate the times, because what worked 5 years ago doesn't work for a customer service experience even today. And that's really our end goal is, I don't want this process to be stressful for people. I want it to be fun, because that's what it should be. You're building a dream home for them. So we're one of the few groups in Calgary that have who we call a customer experience manager. And she touches every part of the business and even connects up with our trade partners to ensure that process goes as smooth and as fun as possible.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that customer experience manager, was that kind of idea of customer experience always important to you, or has that kind of been learned?
You know what, my father, years ago, he placed the customer at the top of our organizational chart. And the only challenge I had with that is, although we did that, that's all that we did. We emphasized the customer, but you needed the programs, and you needed to fine-tune the entire process all the way through to make it work. And that's one initiative that I've been working on since becoming president 12 years ago. And a lot of it comes down to finding the right people to help drive it, because it's not just me. It takes people in every end of the company who believe in this and help contribute to it, and it takes a person like our customer experience manager to tie it all together.
Right. In business, we talk about this a lot: is attracting the right people, and you've mentioned it several times. Having the right people on the bus, essentially, that believe in the vision and really want to carry that out.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about attracting the right people?
Well, apparently social media can do that. Because now we're starting to get people say they watched a video of mine or seen a post from Shane Holmes or even they have a connection that they deal with on social media with either one of our salespeople or service people. So it's almost a team effort there as well, and that's what draws people into our company. But we're very much about having a fun culture, and I know a lot of businesses say that, but we really do try and connect with people that way. And we'll always hire for culture first, even though we might be passing up somebody with tremendous skills. If you can't fit the culture, then you're not going to fit in here. That's our priority, and that's how you get the best people.
How do you foster a fun community or a fun culture?
It starts here. It starts with me. And it's having those same people who want to come into work every day and have fun. They don't want to come in and be serious all the time. They don't want to be grumpy. They don't want to be, they don't want to be the square peg in the round hole. They want to come in and they want to have fun too. We want to laugh, we want to joke, but we want to do our jobs at the same time, and we try and pass that along to our customers as well. They know that they can call us anytime. They can talk to us, very openly and very honestly, and that's how you get the most out of people. But that's what makes it fun working here as well.
And how do you go about gathering that feedback? Is it kind of a constant feedback loop that you have that's with your staff that this is exciting, this is what we want to do? Is there how do you go about performance and that sort of thing?
Well, again, we go back to the surveys that we do with our customers. So we can kind of grade our people and our process that way. We will follow up with our staff as well, and we'll try and kind of do a wellness check and just see, are we having a good time? The door's always open. We don't have closed doors in this office very often. But you do try and keep your finger on that and ensure that, yeah, everybody's working hard, but everybody's having a good time doing it. And that's our wellness check with them every day, every week, every year.
Yeah, awesome.
Sorry, one other way, let me mention this, is we do get together with our staff. We have our own company meetings. Some people refer to them as a town hall. We still like company meeting, but we share a lot of information with them that most organizations probably wouldn't. We talk about where we're going and how we're going to get there and what kind of role they play as a part of it, and they know that they can ask any questions that that they want about that. But we also share the profitability of the company, because they also receive a profit share that, they can, they're more than happy to accept, but they've more than, honestly, they've earned it. So that makes them feel good as well. But we share a lot of information. We're not keeping secrets here. Mm-hmm. We're involving them throughout the whole piece.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I think it's super interesting, and it's also becoming more popular, I think,
mm-hmm.
is that transparency aspect from the business to employees and everybody in between. Why do you choose to do that? Is it a motivation thing?
Well, the meeting, we want them to know where we're going. As far as the profit sharing goes, they've shared in our success. They've created our success, so why wouldn't you share more with them? And I think that's the most important thing, and they can apply it to whatever they want. Some people have purchased their dream home, they've gone on their dream vacation, some have gone home to their own country to visit family all over again, whereas they might not have the opportunity. So you have to have something like that in place, but you have to allow them the flexibility to do all that too. We've had a few people take time off just to go and travel the world for a couple of months. So that's really kind of what we're about, is creating that kind of open, welcoming environment, but allowing them the opportunity to grow with us and grow properly. But they do enjoy the profit sharing, I'll guarantee you that.
I bet. Have you ever had a scenario, there's always scenarios where some people respond really great to some things and mm-hmm. some people don't,
Yes.
Have you ever had a scenario where maybe this method didn't work for somebody, and how did you approach that?
Oh, well, I think that's just inherent in any business. When you're always trying different things, you're going to run into roadblocks where, things don't always work the best. We've tried to stay on the edge of technology. I'll just use one quick example that affected our customers greatly. We moved towards electric hot water tanks here about 15 years ago. That experiment lasted about a year because the costs were 2 to 3 times more, and we had tremendous pushback on it. So we had to pull back on that initiative and go back to natural gas. But we had to pick up quite a few changes for customers to change out their old electric to a brand new natural gas hot water tank. But that's what happens when you're trying to be innovative along the way. You may not, it may seem like a good idea initially, but you'll find out pretty quick.
It sounds like you've adopted the mentality, and I'm the same way. And I think a lot of companies aren't these days, but innovation requires trying and failing to learn.
Oh, sure.
Right. Yeah. You call yourself a tech junkie. What do you mean by that?
Because I've never been afraid of technology. And I think that goes back to even my parents. When fax machines first came out, I remember my father thinking this was the greatest invention. So he went out and bought fax machines for every show home, and these things were massive. They were about $5,000 at the time, and this is the mid-'80s, so I think this translates to about $20,000 today. But every show home had a fax because Cal wanted the paper flow to move so rapidly that they could fax a deal into him and he could approve it right there and have it back within half an hour even. So, you learn from that. My mother, she always had the best, fastest new computers in her office, so you just get used to that when you're growing up. Now, they may have stopped at a certain point, but, I certainly kept pushing forward with a lot of it. I couldn't wait to get my hands on a smartphone and integrate it within the company, but, playing around with different apps and trying to find a way that, again, you can fit that customer experience to the point where, They can have their information available 24/7 on their phone, and they can get a response, online in roughly 15 minutes, and it's not from somebody in India. It's actually somebody who works here who understands every subdivision and what's available and what the pricing is. So yeah, I guess that's where the tech junkie comes from, is I encourage that, and if I live that, then people generally follow.
Yeah, and that translates into some of the other things you do as well. You're big on social media. Talk to me about why that's important.
Well, it started off as fun. I had to learn what this was about 11, 12 years ago when Twitter came into being. That was a fun learning experience. And then it just expanded onto different platforms, and it had always been there. But where it really took off was, back in 2020 when everybody's locked down and you're bored. It just seemed like we came into work every day and then we went home every day, Going to the grocery store was literally like going to the Emmys because you were finally getting out. But I just started fooling around more and more with it, trying to learn a little bit more about how the algorithms work, and eventually graduating into video, which I wasn't too keen on at the time, but you learn, and you perfect it over time and get a little bit better at it over time. So that one really grew, that one really expanded, but that was part of the fun of it all. It allows me to flex my creative muscle, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned understanding the algorithm and that sort of thing. It all comes down to marketing, which is your roots too, right?
Yeah. You don't get to do that much when you're president and CEO.
What is kind of like, what are the messages that you focus on? Business, personal, whatever the case may be. What are some of the pillars of your content?
Some of the pillars are, I'm giving my opinion on things, because there's a lot of things happening in the world. It seems like every day, every hour, there's something different that you could comment on. But, giving my opinion that way, sharing some of the experiences I've learned along the way, either in business or personal life. And, teaching people a little bit more about housing and why we do some of the things that we do here. So that's a lot of what I've kind of focused on, and, people seem to like it.
What are your primary platforms that you focus on, and why?
Well, I still like Twitter, even though it's a bit of a bitch fest at times. You can't win with some people, but Instagram is still fun. I quite enjoy that. LinkedIn, that just gives you an opportunity to share some really good business advice and learn a little bit as well. I mean, if you use the platform for what it's intended, it's not just a job search platform, but you can learn a tremendous amount there. So I guess without going to tech, that's where I'm learning something new all the time. There's always a different article or a video to watch. I'm not a huge Facebook fan. I don't think I totally get TikTok yet. But, YouTube, I mean, that still gives you some great opportunities, as I find myself watching videos while I'm traveling or even in the evening just to learn something new. So that's what I tend to focus on is all those.
Yeah. You mentioned learning quite a bit in there. I'm curious why you run a successful company, you're doing all these things, but learning is still a key pillar, it sounds like. Why is that?
Because I don't know it all. And the world is changing so rapidly. You really have to keep up on what's changing out there. There might be a different application that you could apply in your company. There might be a different consultant that you should speak to. One of them was actually a customer experience individual who focuses on that through her company. And we brought her up here to speak at our last company meeting, not only to our staff, but to our trade partners as well. And that was one way that we found her was through LinkedIn, and trying to learn a little bit more about what can we do to perfect the process, or at least come up with our own process that kind of transcends more than a year at a time.
Right. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, and you can't know it all forever. And I know at some point in time I'm probably going to get old and grumpy and not want to change anymore, but there's an entirely different generation of people coming up through the ranks here, and they've got time, and they've got some great ideas to learn from as well.
Absolutely. What are some of the core values that you hold for yourself that kind of translate into everything that you do as well?
I think one of the most important ones would be giving back to the community. You know, I joke about, you know, obviously we've got a profit sharing program for our staff, but that's how important the people are to us. But, you know, it goes back to a philosophy that my parents have. It's, you know, you do not deserve a right to derive an income from the community without giving back to it. You know, those are words from my mother and my father, and I always try and kind of live by that. You know, because we've been very fortunate over the years to be very successful at what we do, but you don't get to do that without, you know, the people who are buying your product, you know, contributing to that. So we like to give back to the community, and we like to focus on, you know, health, wellness, and education. Those are kind of our three pillars for anything that we donate or we sponsor to. And we've given back you know, a tremendous amount to the Calgary community, or Calgary and surrounding community rather, over the years.
The idea of giving back, I love it, and it's obviously ingrained. You know, beyond you talk about deriving an income from that without giving back is obviously is wrong. Mm-hmm. Was that, I guess you learned it from your parents, so that was always important to you? Was it part of the company culture as well before you took over?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that was instilled from day one. You know, is that we weren't going to make an income without doing that. And this being our 45th year, we plan on doing something even more special with that.
Awesome. Do you find the Calgary community is conducive to that kind of, that, you know, it's that element of business is important here?
Sure it is. I think it's, I actually think it's important no matter where you go, but especially here. People rely on it. You know, and there's so many worthy charities out there. I mean, you'd love to be able to give to all of them, but you just can't. But at least if you set the example for it, I think businesses will follow. And that's really, you know, besides giving back to the charity, that's one other thing that we hope that encourages is other businesses to give back, no matter how big or how small.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Calgary business as a whole. You know, you mentioned off camera that Calgary is obviously, you know, your main market, and then Airdrie as well. How important has, you know, this foundation been to your business?
It's been crucial, because now I can put my mother and father over there, and they can focus on the charities that they really want to take care of. But we have the Wenzel Family Foundation, and they do give a tremendous amount away that way. And you've seen a lot of those endeavors up at the Foothills Hospital with the Wenzel Precision Health Clinic. But, you know, through the Shane Holmes group of companies, we tend to focus a little bit more on, you know, on the general community. So you'll likely find us at, you know, quite a few of the recreation centers around the city of Calgary and in Airdrie. You know, it's a great place to reinvest back in the community and help them continue to grow.
And how do you select these organizations?
With a great deal of difficulty, because you could literally get about 10 requests a week. So you have to try and find some happy balance. So we'll get together and we'll discuss it, you know, as regularly as possible, usually every month, and try and determine, you know, what kind of fits within our own criteria. Like I said, you'd love to be able to give to all of them, but you just can't.
Right. Passion is extremely important in business. Mm-hmm. You know, business, well, personal life and business. I'm curious as to how you find alignment between, you know, what you love to do and how you go about that in your business as well.
I think it's different for everyone. You certainly have to be passionate about what you're doing on a professional basis. If you're not, then I would suggest moving on, go into a different career, because, you know, it's not going to be fun otherwise. You know, this is fun because it's forever changing. You know, there's so many different aspects to building and development that, you know, it seems like every day there's a different challenge, and you know, some you can navigate through relatively easy, and others, you know, can be incredibly difficult, but another learning experience. But you know, I enjoy the challenge personally. But for anybody else out there, like I said, you've got to be passionate about what you're doing, or quite honestly, move on. You're going to be happier at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And leaning into that, where do you personally get fulfillment out of what you do every day?
Well, I get fulfillment out of the fact that we're creating dream homes for people. And each and every one of them is different, unique, because we've managed to meld a production process in with a customization process, and we've perfected that over the last 45 years. But when you see people move into their homes and you see some of the pictures and you receive some of the emails or the letters or the comments even online through social media, I mean, that's fulfilling, because they're happy, and we know at that point that we've done the best job we possibly can. That's really what you're working towards at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're selling homes, but the result is happiness.
Sure it is. Yeah. And it's the largest purchase they're ever going to make in their lives. So, I mean, we've got to be on our best every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Was that always important to you? Just making people happy, because that's what a lot of businesses strive to do, and some fall flat. But it seems like you get to do that every day, and you're glowing because of it.
That's always been the goal. We have a simple philosophy that we give to our staff, and it's simply put, to be the best you can be. That's it. That's our focus every day. Just be the best you can be, and we know that we're not going to be perfect all the time, and we know that we're going to make mistakes along the way too. How we handle it, how do we deal with those mistakes? I mean, that's really what's important. But we still want to get to that end goal. We want to turn over what we think is the perfect house, and have the happiest customers around.
Speaking into mistakes, or have there been any mistakes that you've made as a company that you're comfortable speaking about?
Oh, sure.
That you've learned from, and maybe how you pivoted.
Oh yeah, there's always some. There's lots. The website wasn't one of them. Even though I was told that for 8 years. No, I think the biggest mistake we probably made, and we learned it along the way, was we're great at what we do. We're great at being that production home builder with that customization process. We are not a great custom home builder. We're not geared up for that. And what I mean by that is, when you're getting into very large homes in the millions and millions of dollars, we've tried to tackle that market twice, because we didn't learn the first time. We tried to tackle that twice, and we failed miserably 2 times, because we're just not geared up for that. We don't have the right salespeople. We don't have the right trade partners as a base. We're used to a very quick turnaround in our process, and we know that we perfected that. And that process, there requires a lot of hand-holding, and you have to be very meticulous in the work that you do, or you're going to fail at it. So yeah, we literally failed at that 2 times, and we've learned our lesson, and we've packed our tail between our legs, and we'll never go back that way. But the others, we've done extremely well. That's just business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you always see yourself? I know we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but going into business, and if so, did you know that this would be it? Or, maybe even in the future, do you consider doing other things? Where do you sit on all that?
Well, I would say in the beginning, no, I wasn't totally convinced. I was in the business as a marketing coordinator, and you're never sure what that looks like down the line. You're never sure if you should pursue a different career. I know my mother was always disappointed that I didn't follow up in a career with comic book art, or even in broadcasting, because she felt that's where I should have been. And it turns out, that over time I had an opportunity to flex that creativity here, and now I get to play around on social media, so that really opens up a few doors. But the business just became more interesting as it started to grow, and I developed a passion for it. Like I said, there's a different challenge every day, and you have to tackle that. And I think that's part of the fun in all of it is, give me a challenge, and I'll take it on. It keeps things interesting. Where would I go in the future? Well, eventually I'm going to have to slow down. Like I said, I don't think anybody can stay fresh forever. I can't occupy the president's chair forever. And at some point in time, somebody else is going to have to take up that mantle, because I might not be able to keep things, changing according to the marketplace. So I'm prepared to step aside at some point for that. It might be in the next 5 years, and I'll just sit as CEO or even be a part of the family board.
You mentioned comic book art in there.
Yeah.
Was that something that you were into?
Yeah, it was, because I collected comics for a number of years when I was younger, and I always loved getting lost in the fantasy of it all. But I was always more creative with artwork, and comic book art was right up my alley. I still do it on occasion, but not as much as I did back then. And again, that's where I think my mother was most disappointed. She thought I would pursue a career that way.
Wow.
Sorry, Mom.
And also broadcast. It's funny. When we were doing some prep for this. We were listening to some of your prior talks and
Yes.
that sort of thing. And you're incredible, and it comes so naturally to you.
I know I'm getting in shit for not pursuing that still, but she's laying off after this many years finally.
Right on. Well, it's funny because that's kind of the way it went. As a president and CEO, you get to do a lot of media opportunities. Is that something that you're passionate about, or is it just something that you're good at and it's part of the job?
No, I think I'm going to have to say I'm passionate about it. It's kind of fun. It's another one of those different challenges. Like I mentioned, it really kind of kicked into gear, in early 2020 when we're in lockdown, and I wasn't totally comfortable in front of the camera. I mean, there was a little bit of fumbling and, trying to make home videos while learning how to cut things together properly, or at least do it all in one take, was a bit of a challenge. But I think that, you learn over time and you become better at it. It's like anything you try. It's just repetition, and you'll get better at it.
Yeah, awesome. So beyond Shane, you're also part of Build. You have some political involvement. Mm-hmm. You do some advisory work as well.
Yes.
Talk to me about how you manage all of these different things that you do, and where do you put your priorities, and how do you manage your time?
It's a great deal of difficulty. It's finding a happy balance. I was involved with Build on the board for about 14 years. I just recently, I won't say resigned, I just didn't run again. Because after 14 years, I think that's more than enough. I don't think anybody should stay in a board position for more than 8, 9, possibly 10 years. Not to say that my best before date was done, not to say that they didn't want me to come back, but I think 14's enough. I contributed what I could, and it's time for another generation to do their part. With AEG, being a board member there, that gives me more of a provincial perspective, so I can, again, learn from different people from different industries and understand the issues that they have, and how the provincial or federal government can help kind of craft policy that makes sense for business. And the political involvement, that's always been something that my family's been involved with. My mother's a good old Saskatchewan girl, so she remembers her father, my grandfather, taking her to vote the first time she turned 18. It was just something that was talked about around the table in Saskatchewan. So it became a conversation, around the table here, growing up.
So, and when you're doing all of these things, does it come naturally to just kind of decide how you're going to spend your time on any given day, or does it require a lot of prioritization?
It requires a lot of prioritization. Again, I'm trying to fulfill a role here. We're trying to expand the company. So you're playing visionary, and you're kind of hand holding. You're not as involved in the day to day, but then you're trying to find a happy balance between, I have an obligation here on this board. You have people looking for opportunities to even get an hour with you just to have a coffee and pick your brain about your experiences, which I'm more than happy to do. But I think the first year I did that was during lockdowns, and it was 42 times. That was a little much, but it was something I was willing to do because you have people asking for your time, so why not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does it ever feel like too much, your workload?
Oh, sure it does. Some days you feel absolutely exhausted, and you kind of ask yourself, why are you doing this to yourself? And I guess I look at it and say, well, your career is only for so long, and you might as well just take advantage of it while you can and give the most you can, because I can slow down and I can relax later on if I feel like it. So that's really, I guess, the way I look at it. Although I am getting to the point where it's, taking a little more time for myself is definitely a priority.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, recharging is integral to showing up every day, right? To the best of your ability. How do you do that?
I make sure I get the hell out of here for, every 3 months. Just even for a week, and, leave technology where it is. And, I'm not answering phone calls. I'm not checking emails. At most, I might take a peek at a few things on social media. Other than that, I really want to just kind of disconnect. Just, really kind of take in the moment. But, shutting down here, it certainly helps the mind. It helps the body. But every quarter, you've got to do that. I would recommend that to anyone.
Are there any specific techniques? You mentioned like a kind of a hiatus kind of idea where you could just take a full break. Are there any techniques that you apply on like a daily basis that maybe you take 5 minutes, whatever the case may be, that you might recommend to people?
Yeah, it's having that routine in the morning. It's just taking a time just to kind of focus on what am I doing today, and not having any interruptions, and making the adjustments that you have to. But just for lack of a better term, call it even a meditation, so to speak. It's not a quiet meditation where I'm sitting in a room with no noise, but I just have a routine, and it includes a coffee, and it just requires quiet time, just so you can kind of set yourself up for the day and properly.
You mentioned the coffee thing that came about during COVID. When you went out with people that were asking that sort of thing. You said 42 is definitely a lot. Are there sacrifices like that you've had to make along the way to continue to grow your business, where you've had to say no to those coffees in the past and that sort of thing? And what does that look like?
Oh, sure. I mean, no one can do 42 of them. I was letting loose just to, call it doing a little bit of market research. And I mean, I would say that most of the interactions were hugely beneficial. It's not only giving of yourself, but you actually learn a few things along the way too. You never know how that connection is going to benefit you. Some of them weren't as fulfilling as what you'd hope, but give or take, the vast majority, I would say 85% of them were phenomenal. But I learned that, you have to curb that a little bit, because, you find different priorities, like expanding the group of companies to a different city, and expanding what we're doing here as well with our multifamily division and land division. So every year, there just seems to be different priorities, and you have to find a happy balance for what they are. But that is still definitely a part of it. Call it a kind of a soft way of mentoring.
We were talking about tech earlier, but I'm curious, you mentioned you're no longer part of tech specifically, but are there any other I read about advisory on your website and that sort of thing. Do you take part in either mentoring or being mentored or anything like that currently?
No, I don't do any direct mentoring other than with the people here. Again, we're at the, I hate to say it, the family members are kind of at that age and stage where we're getting older. And a few of us are going to, step aside over the next few years. So, trying to mentor our executive team and some of our GMs to step up. So that's kind of the mentoring that I do. Like I said, with the coffee appointments, you could call those, soft mentoring sessions. And that's about all the time I have to focus in on those right now. But well worth it. Well worth it.
Do you find that you get just as much as you give when you're doing these mentoring sessions? Even, they come to you as kind of the student, if you will, but
Sure.
Sometimes through those conversations you learn things as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes it's the one sentence or the one paragraph or the one thoughtful conversation that you have that makes it all worthwhile. I mean, when you know that you've made an impact on people and all you've had to do is share an hour in a coffee with them, that's really giving back. That's how I'd like my dash to be remembered.
Do you still, you were speaking earlier as well about, working with your father.
Yes.
Is he still involved, and what does that relationship look like?
Yes, he is. At the ripe old age of 80, he's still involved in the business. He still comes in every day, and we still have great conversations about where to go with it. And in some cases, we'll butt heads, but not very often. He started it, and he grew it to a certain point, and my job was always to grow it even further. And that's where the group of companies came from over the last 12 years. We expanded our development portfolio. We expanded into multifamily. Cal spends a special amount of time on the foundation, on investments, and will poke his nose in on the other business aspects on occasion. But you'll never get him to fully retire, and I wouldn't expect him to. He's not too passionate. He's very passionate about all of this. This is kind of his second baby, and he's loved watching it grow.
That's interesting. You mentioned that sometimes when, does it ever feel like an overstep, or what does that family dynamic look like in business? That's always interesting for me to hear about.
I don't think it's an overstep. I think it's unique in any family business. I mean, I've, certainly in tech, there were a few involved there, and some were. There was a tremendous amount of animosity. Here, we don't have that. We get along relatively well, most of us, or not most of us. We all get along relatively well. We don't overlap on various areas, but we understand our place, and we just try and work towards being the best we can be every day, and setting an example within the company.
How do you manage that conflict when it does come about, especially between family members potentially?
Each situation's unique. Each situation's unique, and you have to just kind of refer back to the fact that although it's a family business, it's a business first and foremost. So you almost operate with kind of a family code of conduct, and you have to recognize that we all have roles in the company, and the role as a business overrules any family relationship that way. That's how you manage it the best. And oddly enough, that kind of criteria came out of tech with one of the members there, where we talked about having that family code of conduct, to try and manage it. And I'll never forget that, and it's worked well for us ever since.
Do you mind diving a little bit into that, what that family code of conduct looks like?
Well, what it looks like is, if you do have a conflict, then it's resolved within, kind of the family circle, but everybody knows their role, and they know that, great, we can all say we're family, and we can all talk about business, and we can all get together, throughout the holidays or on trips or lots of things as family. But if you have a family member who reports to somebody, and in the company, for lack of a better term, you can't try and overrule them. You can't be a little shit and cause problems. There is a hierarchy, and you do have to follow that. And if you don't, well, you could be asked to leave. That's all there is to it. And that's how you manage it as best as you can. And it might create some hard feelings with certain family members, but it's a business first and foremost.
Yeah, I think that's so important. You hear horror stories about families going into business together and that sort of thing, and it's maybe because their priorities aren't in the same place, or the understanding, it's different if it's personal first. Or
I think any parent, if they've started a business, a lot of them would prefer that their kids take over the businesses, but they're not necessarily the best to take over the business. And I think that's where a family board would even come in handy, is develop that, give everybody an update, keep them involved that way. If they want to be more involved or hands-on, perfect. That's the ultimate dream, but they better be the most capable. And that, even for me, that was part of the criteria. I had to be the most capable to take over the company, because if I wasn't, I put 132 people out of work. I don't want that on my shoulders. I want to make sure that they're always working, and we're growing, and they're growing along with us. But that's a big responsibility.
Was there a point in time when you were transitioning from marketing to potentially taking the president's seat that you knew that that's what you wanted to do?
Well, I knew I wanted to do it. I was scared as hell to do it. And that I guess that's what made it one hell of a good challenge. Because you're never sure if you're capable of it. And I think I think my biggest challenge was I was always comparing myself to my father. What would he do? How would he handle it? Which is okay to a certain point, but eventually you have to kind of stand on your own 2 feet, and you have to make the unpopular decision, and you have to butt heads with them just to move the company in the right direction. Like I mentioned before, that has happened on occasion. It doesn't happen very often, because we keep in really close contact, and we do agree on a lot of things.
You mentioned kind of, asking what your father would do. I'm curious, did you ever experience imposter syndrome or anything like that, or do you?
I think that's exactly what it was at the time. And that was probably the first couple of years of it. You have that self-doubt, and you're never really yourself. You're making decisions that they would make, and you're responding the way they would respond, rather than being your own person and trying to kind of come out of your shell, so to speak. And again, I think I'll go back and I will credit Tech Canada and the friendships that I developed there in kind of coming out of that. I think that was probably one of the best improvements or the best experiences I've had, and that gets you away from being the imposter for sure. Now I have a son that I have to deal with that way, but at least I know, and and I can kind of help him navigate that as well.
Is there any, you attributed Tech, which is incredible, but is there any specific things that they taught you in how to go about that, how to challenge those self-limiting beliefs potentially?
Well, I mean, with Tech, it was a very structured approach. Every month we would have a meeting, and every couple of months we would each bring an issue, a pressing issue, to put out in front of the group. And we had to have that in 4 days prior to the session, so everybody had time to read up on it. You were expected to read up on it, and you could be dealing with upwards of 6 of these every session. And I think that was the best way to go about it. That was the best experience. So it wasn't just one individual. I mean, there were obviously bits and pieces from everyone that contributed, but those, I guess, business cases were the ones that kind of gave you the most direction. Whether it was your issue or not, you could take something from that and apply it to your own business. And you had the best minds. You had your informal board giving you the best advice. That would be it.
Right. Awesome. You've hinted, and we talked a little bit off camera about expansion. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned also 45 years, so congrats on 45 years.
Thank you.
But you've been in Calgary and area for that duration, mm-hmm. And now you are headed?
Not north. It's too damn cold up there. We're going south. We're going down to Dallas. We wanted a second city as part of the company for a number of years, and we had hoped it would be Nashville, but we probably missed the boat on that one. But we have some good business partners down in Dallas, and the opportunity presented itself, and we decided to take it. So we were just down there. We were just visiting with our new general manager for our Dallas division, and he appears like he's going to fit in well with our culture, and we should have show home started in September. We'll be ready to go.
Awesome.
Back to the wild, wild west, so to speak.
No doubt. What was the driving factor of that decision? Was it just like that was the right market and you've always kind of been looking, or now was the time for whatever reason?
That was always the right market. Believe it or not, that was actually one of my goals out of Tech many years ago, was I wanted that second city. But as we would motor through our strategic planning sessions, but we always had other priorities kind of getting in the way of that, and for good reason. We didn't have a multifamily division. You could see that happening in the marketplace more so. So we took baby steps to building up our multifamily division. Land, well, of course, if we don't have land, where are we building? So that took priority as well. And and that customer experience. So I had to get those priorities out of the way first, and then we started to look. And believe it or not, we were close. We were close on Nashville. Our land guy was ready to go down there, and he had 3 parcels to pick from in March of 2020. And then the world shut down. You know, it seemed like a second city was jinxed at this point, because I couldn't in good conscience send them down there when you had no idea what you were going to open up to. You know, were people going to be so scared that they wouldn't come out and buy? You know, and within the first month of dealing with COVID protocols and various lockdowns, I had to reassure our staff here that they would still have a job even if we just broke even. It wasn't about making a profit that year, it was about taking care of our own. So we shelved the idea. We put the idea on hold, and when we opened up, it wasn't immediate, but within a few months, boom. You know, the market exploded, and things took off, and you know, again, Nashville just kind of sat on the shelf, and by the time we got back down there, what was that, about 14 months ago? Nashville had exploded as well. Raw land pricing tripled, and we would have been getting into the market at the wrong time. You know, so we started venturing out, looking at other areas like the Carolinas, and Dallas was on the list. And like I said, we had a good business partner from here in Calgary who offered to take us around and show us some of the things they were doing, and we came to an agreement. So here we go, down to Dallas.
Awesome. It sounds like, you know, to be in this market, you have to really have your finger on the pulse in regards to opportunities and that sort of thing.
Sure you do.
How do you ensure that you're always on top?
Well, again, you have to do a tremendous amount of market research, and there's a lot of valuable resources out there that we can tap into to find out which markets are kind of on the cusp. Those are available to you, but you got to be brave. You got to be willing to go for it. And in our business, you have to be well funded to do it as well. You know, because it's not inexpensive to be a home builder, let alone a developer as well. But you know, starting off with, you know, procuring you know, about $5 million worth of lots that are going to be paid out before you're done, even completed the house, and you've only got 5% down from your customer. So it's a very expensive game to play, and you have to manage that extremely well. You know, so we're you know, we devoted a certain amount of money down to Dallas to get it started off, and we have a plan. You know, with any luck, within the next 5-6 years, we'll reach that capacity that we want.
Awesome. You mentioned that that Dallas was part of your goal, which I find super fascinating, even from back in tech. How important is goal setting?
I do it every year. I would encourage everybody to do it. You know, personally, professionally, for your business, and especially for your family. You know, don't do too many of them. Have 3 goals for each as a maximum, maybe only 2. Yeah, because you want something that you can achieve within a year. You don't want to go through this entire, or try and go through this entire list and, you know, have half of them that you haven't had a chance to start. But set it every year. It doesn't have to happen in December. It could happen in February, but, you know, put a 12-month timeline on it and follow through. Look at it every day. It could be part of your coffee or your meditation in the morning, just to remind yourself, this is where I'm trying to go, and this is how I'm going to get there. You know, but I would stick to those 4 kind of core areas. You know, that to me is how you're going to find balance, because, you know, you don't want to forget about your family along the way. You have to take care of yourself personally, but professionally you want growth, and you want your business to grow as well.
So checking back, do you know that check back on during your coffee, for example, would that be you know, making sure that every decision that you make that day is kind of adhered to these goals, or?
They're part of it for sure. You know, some of them are just general tasks that you've got to get out of the way, and others are those big lofty goals where, you know, it might be one little thing to kind of move the needle towards that goal. Like Dallas is a great example. You know, you needed a business plan. You can't just go in there and buy a bunch of lots and hope for the best. You have to go out with a plan. You have to procure some financing. You have to take a long-term look at it and say, this is where I want to be in the next 5 years. You know, so yeah, you add little bits and pieces to that every day, every month, every year, and eventually you do get there. It just takes a while.
Shane, what does success look like to you?
Well, I guess if I look at success, I'll look at success kind of towards the end of my career. I want to say that I grew this thing. I want to say that it was successful, and we learned a lot along the way. But we had a hell of a lot of fun along the way too. I want to have these fond memories of my career and my life, and hopefully I didn't miss a moment of it. You invariably do, but you want to take in as much as you possibly can. So at the end of all of it, that's where I'd like to have been. No regrets.
100%. What's next for you? So obviously we talked a little bit about Dallas. Where's your time going? What's next for you? Where can we follow you?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I even know what that is yet, but I'm going to continue to focus on growing the group of companies. It started off as simply building single-family homes. I want to see the multifamily grow. I think we want to add purpose-built rentals into that as well. I want to pick up where my father's left off with investments, and start looking into what else that could possibly be. The world is changing every day, so it's hard to tell. 30 years ago when I a little over 30 years ago when I came into the company, I couldn't have told you what it was going to look like. So, another 20, 30 years from now, who knows what it'll look like? Will it even be home building, or what will that look like? That's the big challenge. Is it going to end up just being a pod for people to live in, that we just move around from site to site to site? I don't know. Maybe it will be. Mm-hmm. You just take your pod with you. I'll just stick you on a different piece of dirt.
That's the exciting piece about innovation in general, like bringing it full circle, right? Is that you never, like you said, you didn't know what the plan was at the beginning, or sorry, not the plan, but what was to come.
Yes.
And now fast forward, 30 years, and who knows?
Who knows? Maybe we'll build airports. I don't know. Maybe the airport won't matter anymore. Maybe people will be content just kind of, going through a transit system somewhere, a hyperloop. I don't know, but what the fun part is never knowing and always trying to lead it, always trying to innovate it. That's the fun part.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, where can we send people to follow along your journey and continue the conversation?
Oh, if they want to hunt me down, I've made it really simple. It's just Shane Wenzel. At Shane Wenzel on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Couldn't do that on TikTok because some little turd who was 17 years old took it already, but I got the real Shane Wenzel. But generally, that's where you can find me. Just add Shane Wenzel.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Shane. It was incredible speaking with you, and I'm sure there's going to be so many people that derive value from what you had to say. So.
That's great. Aiden, thanks for having me.
Thank you.